I was standing in the middle of my parents' living room, surrounded by over 30 relatives, when my mother screamed something that made everyone freeze. Every single pair of eyes turned toward me. My face burned with shame and confusion. Why would she do this? What had I done to deserve public humiliation at her own anniversary party? To understand that moment, I need to take you back to where it all began. Before we dive into my story, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt like your own family turned against you. Have you ever been shamed for saying no? Stick around because what happened next changed everything. My name is Faith, and I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. Our house was nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom place with a small backyard where my dad used to grill burgers on Sunday afternoons. From the outside, we looked like any ordinary American family. But inside those walls, there were expectations that would eventually crush me. My father, Donald, is 58 years old now. He spent most of his working years as a warehouse manager for a logistics company. About 6 years ago, he had to take early retirement because of chronic back problems. Multiple herniated discs, the doctor said. He had surgery twice, but the pain never fully went away. My mother, Patricia, is 55. She works part-time at a department store downtown, mostly to keep herself busy and to get the employee discount, as she always jokes. Together, they raised me and my younger sister Harper in that little house. Harper is 28 now. She got married 3 years ago to a guy named Derek, and they moved to Tucson. She works as a dental hygienist, and Derek is an electrician. They are not wealthy by any means, but they get by. Growing up, Harper and I were close, but as adults, we drifted apart. Not because of any fight, just life getting in the way. We would text on birthdays and holidays, but that was about it. From the time I was young, my parents drilled one message into my head over and over again. Family comes first. Always. You sacrifice for your family, you give until it hurts. And as the only son, I was expected to be the one who would eventually take care of everyone. My parents never said it directly, but the implication was always there. Harper would get married and become part of another family. I would stay and carry the burden. I took those lessons to heart. I believed them completely. And for years, I tried to live up to that expectation. I was not born with a silver spoon. Nobody handed me anything. When I graduated high school, I got a partial scholarship to Arizona State University, but it only covered about 40% of my tuition. The rest I paid for with student loans and by working 2 part-time jobs. I delivered pizzas 4 nights a week and worked at a bookstore on weekends. I barely slept. I barely had a social life, but I made it through. I graduated with a degree in accounting, and I got my first real job at a small firm in Tempe. The salary was not great, but it was a start. I worked there for 3 years, then moved to a mid-sized company in Scottsdale. I climbed the ladder slowly, putting in extra hours, taking on projects nobody else wanted, proving myself again and again. Now, at 32 years old, I am the senior accountant at my company. Not the CFO, not a partner, but a solid position with a decent salary. But here's the thing people do not understand. A decent salary does not mean I am rich. After taxes, after rent, after my car payment, after utilities, after groceries, after putting money into my retirement account, there is not a mountain of cash left over. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I drive a Honda that is 7 years old. I do not take fancy vacations. I do not buy designer clothes. I have been saving every spare dollar for one goal to buy my own house within the next 2 years. That dream has kept me going through a lot of tough times. It has also made me very careful about where my money goes. The pattern started about 5 years ago, right after I got my promotion to senior accountant. My parents knew my salary had increased, and almost immediately the requests began. The first time my mother called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice was stressed. She said the car needed repairs and the mechanic wanted $500. She did not have it. Could I help? Of course I said yes. What kind of son would say no to his own mother when she needed help with the car? A month later, my father called. He had a doctor appointment, and the copay plus some medications came to $300. Insurance did not cover everything. Could I pitch in? I sent the money the same day. Then it was the water heater. Then it was property taxes. Then it was a medical bill my mother had forgotten about. Then it was repairs to the fence. Then it was a new mattress because my father back needed better support. Every time I said yes. Every single time. Because that is what a good son does, right? That is what family means. You help when they need it. But here's what I started to notice. The money was never paid back. At first, my mother would say things like, "We will get this back to you next month." But next month would come and go, and the subject would never come up again. If I mentioned it even gently, she would get defensive. She would say things like, "After everything we did for you, you are counting pennies with your own parents." So I stopped asking. I told myself it was a gift, not a loan. I told myself I was being a good son. But deep down, something started to feel wrong. Over 5 years, I gave my parents more than $20,000. I know the exact number because I started keeping track. $23,450. That is money that could have gone toward my house down payment. That is money that could have changed my life. But I never said no. Not once. Because I was terrified of being called ungrateful. I was terrified of being seen as a bad son. That fear kept me silent for a very long time. 3 months before the anniversary party, something happened that cracked the foundation of everything I believed about my family. I stopped by my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon, unannounced. I had been driving by after running some errands and thought I would say hello. When I walked into the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. There, mounted on the wall, was a brand new 65-inch television, the kind with the ultra-high definition screen and smart features. I knew those televisions cost at least $800, probably more. I stared at it for a moment before my mother noticed me. "Oh," she said casually, "that is a gift from Harper. She surprised us last week." I nodded, but something felt off. Harper had been complaining to me just 2 weeks earlier about how tight money was. She and Derek were trying to save for a bigger apartment because they wanted to start a family. She had specifically said they were cutting back on everything, even eating out. That night I called Harper. I tried to sound casual. I said I saw the new TV at Mom and Dad Place. "That was really generous of you." There was silence on the other end. Then Harper said, "What TV? I did not buy them a TV." My stomach dropped. I told Harper what Mom had said. Harper was just as confused as I was. She had not given them anything recently except a card for their birthdays. That meant one of two things. Either someone else had given them the TV and they lied about it being from Harper, or they had bought it themselves using money they claimed they did not have. Either way, they had lied directly to my face. I did not confront them. Not yet. But I started paying attention in a way I never had before. Over the next few weeks, I noticed more things. My mother posted pictures on Facebook from a nice restaurant downtown. The caption said, "Date night with my love." I knew that restaurant. The cheapest entree was $35. With drinks and tip, they easily spent over $100. A week later, I visited again and noticed my mother carrying a new handbag. When I asked about it, she said she got it on sale at the outlet mall. But I recognized the brand. Even on sale, that bag was at least $200. Then there was my father golf clubs. He casually mentioned his buddy gave him a set of old clubs. But when I looked at them closely, they were not old at all. They still had the tags on the bottom. Those clubs retailed for over $400. Each time I noticed something, I felt a little piece of my trust crumble away. I thought about all the times they had called me with urgent requests. The water heater, the medical bills, the car repairs. Every single time they made it sound like they were barely surviving. Like without my money, they would go under. But here they were, buying televisions and handbags and golf clubs and going out to expensive dinners. I felt like such a fool. About 4 weeks before the anniversary party, my mother called me with another request. This time she said they needed $3,000. $3,000. She said the roof was leaking and they needed to fix it before winter or the whole ceiling would collapse. I did something I had never done before. I asked questions. Where exactly is it leaking? I asked. Which part of the roof? She hesitated. Oh, it is in the back near the guest bedroom, she said. The contractor came and looked at it. He said it is urgent. Which contractor? I asked. What is his name? I would like to see the estimate. My mother's voice changed. It got sharper. Why are you asking so many questions? Do you not trust your own mother? After everything we have done for you, I felt the old guilt creeping in. But I pushed through it. I said I was not saying no, I just wanted to understand the situation. I told her I would think about it and get back to her. She hung up without saying goodbye. A few days later, she called again. This time she was crying. She said I had changed. She said success had made me cold and calculating. She said I had forgotten who raised me, who sacrificed everything so I could have a future. She said, "Is this the son I raised? Someone who makes his own mother beg for help." The guilt hit me like a truck. I ended up sending her $1,000 even though my gut told me something was wrong. I told myself it was a compromise. I was still helping, just not as much. But 2 weeks after I sent that money, I happened to drive past my parents' house. I slowed down and looked at the roof. There was no tarp, no scaffolding, no signs of any repair work. The roof looked exactly the same as it always had. There was no leak. There never was. I went home that night and sat in my apartment in the dark for a long time. I added up the numbers in my head. All the emergencies that never seemed to be real. All the money that disappeared into their lifestyle. All the lies told with straight faces. I was done being their personal bank account. My parents' 35th wedding anniversary fell on a Saturday in early October. They decided to throw a big party at their house. They invited everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. Over 30 people crowded into their living room and backyard. I arrived around noon with my gift. I had thought long and hard about what to give them. I knew whatever I brought would be scrutinized. So I chose something meaningful, something from the heart. I found an old family photograph from when I was about 10 years old. Harper was maybe 6. We were all at the Grand Canyon smiling, looking like the perfect family. I had it professionally restored and framed in a beautiful oak frame. I thought it was a gift that showed love and thoughtfulness. When I walked in, the house was already full of people. Music was playing. Food covered every surface. I said hello to relatives I had not seen in months, some in years. I hugged my aunts and shook hands with my uncles. Everyone seemed happy, but I noticed my mother watching me from across the room. Her eyes followed me everywhere. There was something in her expression I could not quite read. It made me uneasy. The party continued. We ate, we laughed. People told stories about my parents' wedding day, about their early years together. It felt almost normal. Then came the meal. We all sat down at tables set up throughout the house. I ended up at a table with a few cousins and an aunt I barely knew. The conversation was pleasant enough. But then I heard my mother's voice rising above the others. She was sitting at the main table with my father, surrounded by older relatives. She was talking loudly, clearly wanting everyone to hear. "You know," she said, "Harper is such a thoughtful daughter. Even though she does not have much, she always finds ways to show her love. That beautiful television in our living room, that was from Harper. She sacrificed to give us something nice." I felt my jaw tighten. I knew that was a lie. Harper had not bought that television. But I stayed silent. My mother continued. "It is so important to have children who appreciate their parents, who understand what we gave up for them, who do not forget where they came from." A few people at nearby tables glanced in my direction. I pretended not to notice. Then my mother said quite loudly, "Some people make good money but seem to forget who raised them. They get comfortable and suddenly their own parents are strangers." The implication was clear. Everyone knew she was talking about me. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles turned white. But I still did not say anything. I told myself it was not worth making a scene. It was their anniversary. I would let it go. But my mother was not finished. When it came time for gifts, everyone gathered in the living room. One by one, people presented their gifts. Kitchen appliances, gift cards, bottles of wine. Each time my mother thanked them graciously. Then it was my turn. I handed her the wrapped frame. She tore off the paper and looked at the photograph. For a moment, her face was blank. Then she set it aside on the floor, leaning it against the wall like it was nothing. She looked at me and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is it. This is what my son, the senior accountant, brings to his parents' anniversary." A picture in a frame. The room went silent. I felt my face burning. I opened my mouth to respond, but she kept going. "You know," she said, standing up now, "we needed money to fix the roof." We asked Faith. He said no. We needed help with medical bills. He calculated every penny like we were strangers asking for charity. This is how he repays us for raising him, for feeding him, for paying for his education. My father sat beside her, saying nothing. His silence was its own kind of betrayal. An aunt I had not seen in years looked at me with disappointment. "Faith," she said, "you should help your parents. They are not going to be around forever." I felt attacked from every direction. These people did not know the truth. They only knew what my mother had told them. And she had painted me as the ungrateful son who abandoned his family the moment he got a good job. Something inside me snapped, but not in an angry way, in a calm, clear way. I stood up. My hands were trembling slightly, but my voice was steady. "You want to talk about money, Mom," I said. "Okay, let us talk about money." The room went completely silent. I looked around at all those faces, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, people who thought they knew our family. Over the past 5 years, I said, I have given Mom and Dad over $20,000. Every time they called with an emergency, I helped. Car repairs, medical bills, the water heater, the fence, the mattress. I never said no, not once. People started exchanging glances. But here is what they did not tell you. I continued. "That television on the wall, Harper did not buy it." I called her. She confirmed she never gave them a TV. They lied. Gasps from somewhere in the room. The roof that supposedly needed $3,000 to fix, I drove past the house 2 weeks after I sent them $1,000. There was no repair crew, no tarps, no scaffolding, because there was no leak. They lied. My mother's face had gone red. She started to speak, but I held up my hand. "I am not finished," I said. "I have watched them post pictures from expensive restaurants. I have seen the new handbag, the new golf clubs, all while telling me they could barely afford groceries, all while making me feel guilty for not giving more." I looked directly at my mother. "I love you," I said. "I love both of you. But I am not a bank account. I am not here to fund a lifestyle while you make me feel like a terrible son for having boundaries. I have dreams too. I have worked hard for everything I have. And I am done being manipulated." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother started crying. Not the soft, sad kind of crying, the loud, dramatic kind. She called me ungrateful. She said I was humiliating her in front of the entire family. She said I had ruined her anniversary. My father still said nothing. He just sat there, his face red, staring at the floor. But something had shifted. I could see it in the faces around me. Some relatives looked shocked. Some looked uncomfortable. But a few, just a few, looked at me with something like understanding. One of my uncles, a quiet man who rarely spoke, said softly, "I had no idea, Faith. Nobody told us any of this." Across the room, Harper was watching via video call on someone's phone. She spoke up. "Faith is telling the truth," she said. "I did not buy that TV. Mom told Faith I did, but I never did." The room erupted in murmurs. I picked up my jacket from the back of a chair. I looked at my parents one last time. "Happy anniversary," I said. "I hope you have many more years together, but I will not be made to feel ashamed for setting boundaries." And I walked out. The drive home was a blur. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I did not feel triumphant. I felt exhausted, empty, like I had just survived something traumatic. When I got to my apartment, I did not turn on the lights. I just sat on my couch in the dark, staring at nothing. The silence was overwhelming. My phone started buzzing. Text after text from my mother. Some were angry, calling me selfish and cruel. Others were pleading, asking how I could do this to her. I turned off my phone. For the next few days, I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene in my head. Had I gone too far? Should I have stayed silent? Was I really as ungrateful as she said? The guilt was suffocating. After about a week, I decided to do something I had never done before. I made an appointment with a therapist. I needed someone objective to help me sort through everything. The first session was hard. I told the therapist everything. The years of giving money, the lies I had uncovered, the confrontation at the party, the guilt that would not go away. She listened carefully. Then she said something that changed everything for me. Setting boundaries is not betrayal, she said. You are not responsible for your parents' financial choices. Saying no does not make you a bad son. It makes you a healthy adult. Those words hit me like a wave. I had spent so long believing that love meant sacrifice without limits, that being a good son meant giving until I had nothing left. But that was not love. That was exploitation. Over the following weeks, I kept going to therapy. I learned to recognize the manipulation tactics my mother had used. The guilt trips, the public shaming, the rewriting of history. I learned that I was not alone, that millions of people struggle with similar dynamics in their families. I also reached out to Harper. For the first time in years, we had real conversations. She admitted that our mother had tried similar tactics with her, though not as aggressively. She said she had always felt guilty for not helping more, but she simply did not have the money to give. Learning that I had given over $20,000 shocked her. We are in this together, she said, and I am proud of you for speaking up. Those words meant more to me than she will ever know. About 2 months after the anniversary party, my father called. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. He asked if we could talk. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I saw him, he looked older somehow, tired. He sat across from me and did not say anything for a long moment. Then he said, "I owe you an apology." He told me he was sorry for staying silent at the party. He said he knew my mother had gone too far, but he did not know how to stop her. He admitted that they had not been fully honest about their finances. He said he was ashamed. I listened without interrupting. Then I told him I forgave him. But I also made something clear. Things could not go back to the way they were. I would not be their emergency fund anymore. If they needed help, we could talk about it openly, honestly, with full transparency. But the manipulation had to stop. He nodded. He said he understood. My mother still has not reached out directly. Through my father, I know she is struggling with what happened. Part of me hopes she will come around eventually. Part of me has accepted that she might not. But here is what I have learned. You cannot control other people. You can only control how you respond to them. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. Since that day, my life has changed in ways I did not expect. I have kept saving for my house. Without the constant drain of emergency requests, my savings have grown faster than ever. My goal of buying a home within 2 years suddenly feels achievable. I have also learned to say no without feeling guilty. It is still hard sometimes. The old patterns try to creep back. But I remind myself that my needs matter too. My dreams matter. My peace of mind matters. Harper and I are closer than we have been since childhood. We talk almost every week now. She is expecting her first baby in the spring, and I cannot wait to be an uncle. And slowly, painfully, I am healing. Not forgetting, but healing. If you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You are not alone. So many people carry the weight of family expectations that crush them. So many people give and give until there is nothing left. But boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You get to decide who comes in and on what terms. Loving your family does not mean letting them hurt you. It does not mean sacrificing your future for their comfort. It does not mean staying silent while they shame you in front of everyone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up and say enough. I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? How did it feel? Drop a comment below and share your story. You might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched you, please hit that like button. It really helps more people find these videos. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel, so you do not miss more stories like this one. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. I hope you find the strength to protect your peace, whatever that looks like for you. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.